some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcast. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Republican Senator Mitt Romney said the quiet parts out loud during a conversation with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Now, this conversation took place at the McCain Institute's 2024 Sedona Forum in Arizona, where the two lamented the fact that social media is opening people's eyes to some of the atrocities that are being carried out by Israel's government. And basically, they admit that that's part of the reason why there's this effort to ban TikTok in the first place, to shut down access to the app and shut down access to some of the information and postings that young people are engaging in, which does not have a favorable view in a lot of cases toward Israel's military operations on Gaza. Now, first, here's Mitt Romney acting kind of confused about the public's worsening perception of Israel. We'll get to more sound in just a minute.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It's said it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there and our point of view?
Now, this conversation happened prior to today, where Hamas actually did agree to a temporary ceasefire and conceded to a lot of the terms that Israel wanted, including the fact that the ceasefire would in fact be temporary instead of a permanent ceasefire. And Netanyahu has also, of course, promised to invade Rafah, whether there's a ceasefire agreement or not. Now, before we get to more sound, including Antony Blinken's statements, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Pausing here to deliver some honest truth, as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. I thought that was so telling. So number one, he just said it. Yeah, we're shutting down TikTok because we wanna help Israel with their PR. He couldn't be any more clear. He said there's too much pro-Palestinian content on TikTok, and that's part of the reason why we all voted to ban TikTok. I mean, look, guys, we all knew that. If you watch the Young Turks, we explained why that was the case in a lot of ways, but it's not just that. There's other factors that are involved in TikTok. But the part I'm surprised by is him saying it in public and him saying that basically, no, all the other reasons are actually just BS.
Which is
it was just meant to help Israel.
Which is a little disastrous for those who are trying to lean into this facade in order to justify the bans of TikTok. Because remember, as Americans, we still have First Amendment rights. And if you have politicians admitting out in the open that they want to censor certain speech because they disagree with it, well, then it's gonna be easier to challenge a TikTok ban in court. Remember, one of the arguments that you keep hearing over and over again from those who are proponents of banning TikTok is we need to do this in the name of national security. You know, China is collecting your personal data. You should be very concerned about that. But in reality, it's not about a private company or even a foreign government collecting our data. When has the government ever gave a damn about anyone collecting our personal information or data? What they're concerned about is the fact that Americans are engaging in a certain type of speech that these politicians don't favor, and that speech is highly critical of Israel.
100%, and then he says, look, we were doing good PR on how Hamas hasn't accepted the ceasefire. Oops, they accepted it today. And then Israel was caught with their hand in the cookie jar or in the slaughter jar when they were like, oh yeah, we were just kidding. They called our bluff, damn it, we're gonna invade Rafah no matter what. So we'll see if Israel sticks with that line of, which is what they seem to be saying today, but it's Hamas accepted the ceasefire earlier today, so we'll see. But you see him referencing the PR there, and then he just flat out says it again, where he's like, the Israelis and us, we're normally really good at PR, and what's going wrong here? Like we normally brainwash people into our propaganda, and we seem incapable of doing proper propaganda anymore. I mean, how will the American government and the Israeli government exist without overwhelming propaganda? And so, guys, that's why they hate social media. So every negative story you've heard about social media comes down to one and only one reason. Everything else is an excuse. In the old days, when you had mainstream media, the establishment, for all of their causes, could just do 100% propaganda through all forms of American media.
They get to dominate the narrative. And in fact, Cenk,
and he said, you notice there, he said, we're having trouble with the narrative, and Blinken's gonna come back to that,
yes.
right?
I actually wanna go to that clip next, because Blinken, I mean, they're both being very candid about how they hate losing control of the narrative because of social media and the ability to speak freely on these matters. Let's watch.
In my time in Washington, which is a little bit over 30 years, the single biggest change has been in the information environment. And when I started out in the early 1990s, everyone did the same thing. You woke up in the morning, you opened the door of your apartment, your house, you picked up a hard copy of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. And then if you had a television in your office, you turned it on at 6:30 or 7 o'clock and watched the national network news. Now, of course, we are on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Oh, historical context. Do you mean the historical context that people like Blinken consistently leave out and pretend like the war literally began out of nowhere on October 7th? Is that the context that he's referring to?
Yeah, so there's two super telling phrases that he used. He said that the quote, information environment has changed since the 1990s. And guys, that's exactly what I've been telling you, which is the mainstream media had a 100% lock on the narrative, and now social media has broken that monopoly. That's why I've always been on social media side. You know, they always smear, oh, fake news is coming from the social media. But listen to what he said. Oh, social media is missing historical context and facts. But then right afterwards, he said, you know, they're getting influenced by emotion and pictures. He didn't mention video, but also video. In other words, the actual facts. Pictures and videos are actual facts of what happened. And people have an emotional reaction when they see the truth and when they see reality. They're seeing babies' body parts being picked out of the rubble. That's an actual fact, right? The occupation is the historical context for this entire conflict. But before, Blinken, Romney, Biden, Netanyahu were able to control the media completely, and also the pharmaceutical companies, the bankers, etc. And they were able to just feed you the narrative, which is the second thing that he mentioned near the end. He said, social media has had a challenging effect on the narrative.
I mean, it's very difficult for the State Department to leak certain scoops to everyone in social media, right? Like, I mean, this is how the press worked for so long, where, you know, he mentioned the New York Times as one of the prime examples. Well, what happened with the New York Times in the lead up to the preemptive war in Iraq? You have members of the intelligence community literally feeding lines to reporters who worked as stenographers and helped, you know, manufacture consent for that preemptive war.
100%, totally guilty. And the New York Times claimed that they learned from those lessons. They learned nothing at all, and they were doing the same things until social media came along. And you know what social media has been doing to the New York Times and other places? They've been embarrassing them. So they've been saying, hey, wait a minute, you claim to be the paper of record. Here's something you said, it doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't comport with the reality. And then all of a sudden, there's a bunch of young reporters at the New York Times who are going, well, that's empirically true. So are we all just gonna admit that we're doing propaganda? or we're gonna correct the record. And now they've been forced to correct the record enough times. Yes, they intercepted a brilliant piece about how they're still massively skewed in favor of Israel. But overall, they've done a bunch of good pieces now because social media is winning because they actually have the facts, the truth, etc. And it's even breaking down mainstream media propaganda. That is why Romney and Blinken are in a panic going, how do we put the genie back in the bottle so the people with all the money and the power can be in charge without anybody, the riffraff, questioning us?
Right, that's exactly right.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.